So our coverages, let's talk just, and really what we'll do, and this is, to me, is, this is what I believe in, is plain quarters coverage. I think that it's, if you can teach this version of what you have, you can build a lot of different things off of that. You can build in your cover 3 package if that's what you're going to be. You can build in a cover 2 package. You can build in some man, whatever that is. We always talk about it in majors and minors. We're going to major in quarters. That's going to be our major. We may have a minor or 2. We may minor in cover 2. We may minor in some cover 3. We may minor in some blitzes. But we're going to major in quarters. We're going to take some other classes throughout our time. We're going to major in quarters. This is what we're going to be, because we can react off of anything. It's like I always tell guys that and there's 2 blitzes that we have are like my pacifiers. Things breaking loose. My pacifier. I go to my happy place. I go to my safe space. We're going to call quarters. We're going to call our certain blitzes, and that's what we're going to do. Because if things are breaking loose, this is safe. We can do this against anything. And what that's going to be for our terminology in the back end. It's really simple to teach for me the way that we put it together. For me, quarters is not a zone coverage. It is a man coverage. It is a man coverage over the top with some underneath help and underneath zone. But it is going to be man coverage is what it's going to be for us when we play quarters and what those things look like. So it's trying to figure out to our guys. We're going to major in a cutoff position. Where when I'm a defensive back, whether I'm playing from press or whether I'm playing from off, I'm going to major in that I'm playing in a cutoff position. I can reach out, and if this receiver's facing me, I can touch his front pocket, wherever that's at. And they need to know within each structure of whatever one of our minors might be, whatever zone coverage we might have, that we would be in a trail position. We need to know the difference on where that takes my alignment, my leverage, and where that takes then not only my leverage, but where does that take my stance and my eyes when I'm in either one of these parts. So when we're talking quarters, when I'm talking what we call match coverage is what we call it. When we're talking quarters coverage, we're always going to be in a cutoff position. Meaning our goal is to be on top of the receiver, whether that's an off man or whether that's in press man. I think a lot of things get confused in playing bump and run, and I see corners that'll play bump and run, and their first step, they're all by themselves, whether it's zero coverage or whatever that is, they're going to take a step forward. I'm like, shoot, you better get your butt back, because now you're going to be underneath that man. And it's really trying to figure out, is to convey to the secondary guys, what is going on in my head? What is coach telling me by this coverage? I say this to our guys all the time. I need you on my wavelength. I need you to understand when I call this coverage, this is what I'm trying to get out of it. When it's 3rd and 5 and we call quarters, when we call man coverage across the board with no help over the top, you better be impressed. I'm telling you, I want you in man coverage on this guy right now. So I need you to know what I'm trying to talk to you about. I need you to understand where I'm trying to go with this thing. And our trail position is going to be only used when I have immediate help from my safety. If I'm a corner, if I'm in a trail position, I have immediate help right now over the top. Whether that's cover 2 or a rolled cover 3, whether that's cover 2 man, whatever that is, I need to have immediate help. And I need to know that. Those are the only times we're going to be in the trail position. Otherwise, I should reach out and touch that guy's front pocket. Okay, so here's our progression from what we teach. And if you're going to play quarters, whether that's an off man or press man, to me, these are the most important parts that have to go through the mind of the corner. So when we're talking man, if you don't have corners that you think you can teach man, if you don't think guys that compete that way, if you don't think you guys that can have guys that rush quarterback, don't play quarters. Don't play man coverage. To me, playing man coverage, especially press man coverage, comes down to the repetition of the technique. I really believe that. I think you can teach. There's so much that can get taken away from that you can do against the guy by teaching the hell out of technique, by just repping the same technique over and over with your corners and teaching the right kind of quarters, the right kind of press man technique. And if you got any sort of a halfway decent guy that wants to compete, he'll be able to play it for you. Not every down, Not all the time, maybe not against the best player in the state, maybe not against the best quarterback in your conference, but he'll be able to do it. I really believe that. So we do the same progression of teaching our off and our press man. So that when we get to a game, this is what we have to recognize. We teach in terms of an algorithm. If I see this, this is what I do. We want them to go through that in their head. So the first thing they need to recognize is what's the split tell us. The first thing we do on Sundays or Mondays after games for us, when we're bringing on our next opponent, is figure out what does the split tell me. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to track. We're going to track every single one of their runs because that's going to give me my home base for those guys out of each coverage. If it's a 3-by-1 and on the run the X lines up in the middle of the numbers, that's his base alignment. That's where he wants to be. He wants to be at home on the numbers. So anytime now that he starts to vary wider than the numbers, something's up. Anytime he's inside the numbers, something's up. You understand my point? So we're going to track that every day. So the first meeting that we have when we start to talk about our opponents, or even in fall camp when we start to play against our own team, is we're trying to figure out, what does this split tell me? We want you thinking big picture here. What is this split telling me? Where does it go? What does it do? Where is it taking me to? Because now I need to know that. Because if I have a 3-by-1, for instance, and the X has a tight split, he's only doing really two things. Is all he's really doing. It's gonna be a run, and he's going to crack somebody, or he's going to run something outside. He's not going to run an inside breaking route from a tight split. Something's coming back out to me. So now I don't want to be pressed on that guy if he has a tight split. I want to get off and out and recognize what's going on. Because there's a third thing that he could do, and that's what? Go vertical. And now I want to protect against my fatal. Whatever is a play that I can't survive to the next play from, I need to defend that. So now that guy has three options. He's gonna crack on somebody inside, which means that I'm going to be the defender that I need to get people to rally to me. Or he's going to run an outside breaking route, or he can go vertical. Well, if I'm off, I can defend all of those things. So we're going to recognize what that split tells me. The other one that we're going to track is, what does the stance tell me? Because we play a bunch of teams, not one or two. I mean, we've had like 3 or 4 this year, I think, where an offensive receiver's split of his feet will tell us where he's going and what he's doing. If he has a wide split and his outside foot is forward, what does that tell me? If he has a wide split and his inside foot is forward, what does that tell me? And so we'll have a breakdown of every one of those things for our corners every single week, and we'll rep that thing. One thing that we tell our guys, and it sounds kind of stupid, we're always like, make it make sense. What is that guy trying to tell you? What is his pre-snap alignment telling you? So you can take away a lot of things. Are you going to get beat playing man coverage? Yeah, you're going to get beat on some things. Don't allow your fatal. Give yourself an opportunity to play those things. And now you can cut some of the guesswork out of it. You can cut some of the guesswork out of it. So those things have told us what it is. The next part of that thing is going to be when we talk corners and quarters. And again, if you don't have a corner that can play quarters, or if you can't teach them how to play really good man technique, you don't play it. I would just tell you that, don't play it. And we had some guys that we didn't feel comfortable with this year, and we got out of it for a long stretch of time. We got out of playing it, and then we came back to it later because we got better. We improved as the year went on, and then our last game of the year, we played it really well. Had a kid that played it really well by the time he had gotten better with it. So we got that part. So now, if you're going to play, the next part is the release. What does the release tell me? This can be off man. This can be press man. If that guy has what is his release telling me that he's going to be doing? And how can I defend it? Again, if I'm going to play man coverage, we want to get vertical separation on this guy to let him do his thing. What is he going to do? I want to get backwards off the ball on the snap to give him himself to figure out his release. And then we're always going to offhand wherever that goes. I don't want to, on the snap the ball, I don't want to two-hand get my hands out. Because now I'm not going to be able to open my hips. My hips can't ever go anywhere. I want to get back so that I can stay in what kind of a position? A cutoff position. I want to get back so that I can press down on a guy. If he has an inside breaking route on the snap of the football, that I can squish this thing down flat to the LOS. If he has an outside breaking route for me, I want to offhand it so I can get into his pocket and climb back and stay in his front pocket, not his back pocket, in our cutoff position. Want to evaluate the release. If you're playing man, if you're playing off man, if you're going to be looking at a guy and you're playing off man, you better teach the hell out of how to read a stem. My opinion, not preaching to you, sorry, sometimes it comes off like that, but my opinion is that you should teach the hell out of how to read a stem. If a guy has an outside alignment, he has a wide split on you, and he takes an outside release, something's happening to the perimeter. You better work your butt over to the perimeter if you're the corner. If he has a wide split and he takes an inside release, you better be driving on that thing, because it's either going to push up into a post or it's going to get flat into a slant. And that's how we want him to think, because we want to defend the post before we defend the slant. But what we're trying to do here is, if we're going to play off man, again, some guys teach it at 8, 7, 5, 4.5. Whatever your guy feels comfortable with, whatever you feel comfortable with teaching. But you got to read the stem. You got to read where that guy's going to take you. Where is he trying to stem you to go? And what does that tell you? Because now you want to break on anything that of what the route, what the release, what the stem is going to tell you. You want to break down on top of it so you can stay in front of it. The last part on the stem is that if my inside leverage, not my outside, because your outside leverage, if it gets broken, sometimes we tell them to give up your outside leverage. If our inside leverage ever gets broken by a stem or a release, we are going to undercut that puppy right now. We're instantly going to undercut it. Why? Because if it's a good throw, I'm not making the play anyway. And one thing that I don't allow our guys to do, like when we do our reps, I don't ever have a 90-degree break when we're working the breaks of our guys. Because I feel like if a guy breaks so I'm playing an off-man technique, ball's inside here, and this guy's stem takes me inside, and he breaks my inside leverage. Now, the only thing that he can do is push me vertical to allow the quarterback to throw him open. Well, if I undercut this thing, even though I don't make it, but by staying on the same plane with this guy, I never intersect him. He just runs away from me. I never intersect the guy. If a wideout runs a dig, and I don't break to intersect it, he'll just run away from me. If I get pushed vertical and a guy runs a dig, and I make a 90-degree break, I've just started running a race that I started 4 or 5 yards behind it. I'll never catch him. And so we're constantly trying to teach the fact of you've got to find the intersection point, wherever that's going to be. So for us, we're going to teach the undercut, because even if I undercut and he gets over my head, the hardest throw for a quarterback to make, Andy, is one going straight over a guy's head. And there's a corner or a defender underneath that. The hardest throw for a quarterback to make is to push a ball over somebody's head straight down the field. So we want to try to make him do that, is to fit it in. And even if you're beat on the undercut, and you're working this way, in a corner, you've undercut it, and he still climbed vertically on you. He's running on the field. What is that wideout going to do? He is going to run the hell away from you as fast as he can. He's just going to keep going because you're right in his pocket. And that throw for the quarterback is so hard to make, so difficult. What happens most of the time? It's an underthrown ball back to where the guy's at. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to teach within the stem and within the undercut once our inside leverage is broken. And then, as the play progresses, we're going to find and play through his hands. Find and play through his hands as the play progresses to our guys.